Wow.
Critical areas, I believe, are the best candidates for sensors.
First of all, we need to define what is the purpose.
So that people start adopting very complex hobbies just to bring back the sense of purpose in what they're doing every day.
Sounds like a like a great piece of advice. Yeah. Yeah. So you've been working in the field of work tech for a number of years. Tell me about it. What is it that you've done? What kind of companies have you worked for? What's your background? How did you get into the whole?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to the chat. Pleasure to be here. I'm an electrical engineer from the background, and I started with circuit design in automotive and sensors. So I'm coming from sensors, basically in a semiconductor path, and all the circuit design of that for over 10 years at Siemens Semiconductor, then over to different divisions of Siemens, and I've been always to semiconductor industry, but for the past 10 years, I moved away from that part and focused on IoT, cloud application. And at that time, apps was the highest hype in the market. Cloud, most of the organization were starting moving their servers from on-prem to the cloud. So that was a huge option or huge opportunity for sensor manufacturers to offer application in the cloud and make it very easy and cheaper to use those data in the cloud. And one of the advantages of the cloud was to make it easy to connect those data to different applications. And what matters for us is computer-aided facility management, or IWMS, or integrated workplace management system. So collecting those data, passing to the original core application within the organization was one of the keys. The major change, what happened, which relates to our conversation, actually COVID give a huge hype to the topic related to offices and to the buildings. Buildings generally, or real estate has been the last frontier of digitalization, and not because they are not eager to adopt it, rather because they had always been in a situation to have high margins, never compelled to digitalize. And the COVID gave the organization a huge push to, based on the hybrid working, people working at home, and they want to consolidate this situation at offices to offer a better experience for offices to the people and understand how the people work, because we were in a new situation. No one had a blueprint how to adjust the offices. So the sensors came in, but not in Germany first. So as you know, workers' council, data security, there are huge issues. And to my experience, German organizations have never been the first to adopt any technology. They are the fast mover, fast follower. And once this industry or application matures, they adopt it very fast, but they don't want to be the first one. So it took a while. Now, after 4 or 5 years in the COVID, or after the COVID, established for us a new situation working, we are in a phase of adopting sensors and data-based decision making. Let's put it that way, because it could be at different sources in the top of the agenda of most of the facility workplace owners in offices and corporate environment.
Okay. And so you very interesting to hear that actually you come from the sort of semiconductor sensor space in a more generalistic term, and then moved into real estate, which is a very funny move, especially considering your insight that that industry is not exactly the early adopter, but sort of more the early majority or early follower. What kind of companies did you work for? I mean, you mentioned that you personally had a background with Siemens. Is it that kind of organization that you worked with, or was it more larger organizations, smaller? Did you see everyone sort of jumping on the bandwagon post COVID or during COVID, or what kind of companies was it that you focused on?
The majority of organizations interested in that topic were big organizations, big corporates. And the reason is very simple. If you are a mid-size company, like, let's say, up to 1,000 people or less, you have a better overview of your offices. And most of the organization I've experienced, at least, they make on-site decisions or ad hoc decisions and going around and looking around and consolidate. At least that happens for the first 20-30% optimization in space. But after that, it becomes more and more difficult. And the bigger your organization is, the bigger is the intransparency that you have, because you don't know where is the leverage, where to put it. And so the huge attraction to this topic comes mainly from bigger organizations.
So the introduction of sensors has always been seen, or is seen as a solution for solving complexity of large-scale organizations, bringing in transparency, as you said, and then enabling decisions.
Exactly.
And does that work?
Well, the key topic around is, as you know, the people makes the highest cost in a building. If you have an office, the majority of your cost for the building is basically people working in it. So if you want to increase the efficiency of your usage, is basically goes back to increasing the people satisfaction, which is directly related to the performance of the people. One of the key issues that everyone tried to optimize and never found a real key to measure it is a people satisfaction. So, but we have different tools in sense of, if you regularly ask your people how you work, how happy you are in office, how often do you come to office, somehow correlate to their way of working, to their efficiency of working. So that's actually the major target. But how you do it, sensors is part of that, delivering the data to understand how the people use this space. But let me go back one step, because sensor is only one part of the topic. The other parts, the people that implement in offices, is, since implementation of sensors takes at least months or even year to go past through the old processes to be able to use it, people have started in organization adopting different way of understanding how the people use it. And mainly, to my experience, they use the badge data at the entrance of the building. At least it gives them the feeling how many people comes into office at that day. Although they don't know where they go, or even come in and go for a lunch at the canteen and go back home, at least they have a clue where how many people comes to office. Then they correlate it with the numbers of foods sold at the canteen. Many organizations have learned with at least huge organizations, they have their different dedicated IT departments. They've started implementing Wi-Fi IP tracking of the people, if they are in the office or out of the office. That gives also the workplace manager clue regarding how many people are in the office. But to understand where the people are in the office, you have to come down to way of using sensors, or even more accuracy of usage of Wi-Fi within the building to locate the people and understand the usage of the building.
So I mean, what you're getting at is using all those different data sources, based on availability of that data source in the first place, of course, and then also complexity of implementation and using that data. Yeah, being smart about what data you bring together. But at the end of the day, it's lots of different data sources which are either immediately combined together or sort of stacked on top of one another as the maturity of the decision making process grows. But would you also say, because in my observation or in my opinion, some organizations place a lot of hope on sensors to solve everything, and we implement sensors and then we know exactly what we do.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, is that something that you also observe? And if so, is there too much hope placed on that source, that data source on its own? Like, can it fulfill that expectation?
That's a very good question. And the answer is yes and no. One of the key topics that you encountered is most of the people like me positioning sensor and collecting the data are technical people. And the people I've met and they are eager to understand the data to be able to make decision upon data. Most of them are architects. So we are two different type of people encountering, and they speak different languages. I never understood workplace manager what they are looking for, and after a while I understood that what I'm telling them they don't understand actually, because I'm too technical from my way of thinking and how to judge the data. So they were expecting to see, let's say this is an app tells me increase the numbers of meeting rooms by this size, or introduce so many ad hoc meeting rooms for 2 or 3 people. They were expecting concrete actions, but the sensors doesn't provide those actions. It tells you how the facility is used. And the next step, or the gap between understanding the usage and knowing what to do, is a two different world. And that's basically has been, to my understanding, the key issue I've met. Mm-hmm. So we introduced sensors. We thought we delivered the right data. The people sitting in front of it and asking me, I don't know what to do, Peyman. What should I do now? And my management asked me what to do. And we showed them a lot of dashboards, a lot of way of looking at the data, but we never met each other in a common basis exactly that I'm looking for. But over time, I learned there is a huge gap. Yeah. We have enough data, but the more data you collect, the more confused are my counterparts on the corporate level to make decisions.
Yeah. I guess it does also play into the fact that, especially post-COVID, there is a lot of pressure on real estate teams to optimize. And there's a lot of pressure to act. And therefore, of course, it's natural to say, hey, look, I'm trying to find a solution that helps me efficiently make decisions and efficiently increase the efficiency of the space itself. But I guess what's also interesting is, what is the actual objective of those teams? Like, what is it that you've mentioned? A couple of things, of course, between the lines, but sort of taking a step back for a moment, the introduction of sensors as a solution to a problem. What is the problem aside from to bring in transparency? But what is it that real estate teams are actually striving to do at the moment? You mentioned a lot about or you talked a bit about the performance of people, presumably cost efficiency of the space itself, are all topics. Yeah. Do you see prioritizations, common patterns? Do you see a shift in patterns of what is it that organizations are actually striving towards?
The space optimization is on the toppest priority and agenda of all the corporate real estate and FM. And that doesn't mean reducing the space rather than optimizing it in a way that the people experience in a way that they, with the target or the objective that bringing the people back to offices. There has been a huge pressure, especially in the past 1 or 2 years, starting to get the people again back to offices. Most of the big organizations, which they work in a very isolated departments, see that the level of innovation of decreasing. Even they can track it on the numbers of patents that they are issuing, that people sitting at home don't interact in a way as before, as when they are at the office meeting at a water or coffee space or going together for smoke. This interaction within the departments doesn't happen in that way. People stay together. You usually have interaction with your closest department, but that level of serendipity that you need to make those innovations, especially in big organizations, doesn't happen. So the conclusion the managements make usually is bring the people back to office with a hope that again you have that level of first of all innovation, and the second of all, bring it back into the culture of the organization, because it make it for the people indirectly harder to quit and go away or move from one company to the other. So based on those two aspects, the corporate real estate and workplace manager got that mandate to make the spaces in a way, bring the people back to office and optimize the spaces. And to doing so, you need lots of data to make that work.
So the objective of holistic space optimization, finding the balance between high utilization occupancy rates as a way of saying, we're not over delivering or in quantitative side, but on the other hand, creating spaces that best support people, that encourage people to use that platform, that physical environment as an enabler of business processes and innovation processes. Finding that balance is the big challenge, if I understand correctly, in a post-COVID era.
Exactly.
And that is the expectation of real estate teams in today's reality. Going back to what you said previously, you said that the sort of middle layer is missing. So the challenge is big. The objective is very complex, sort of holistic optimization. You need lots of data, transparency, and insight to be able to even make decisions in the first place. Getting that data, understanding that data, interpreting the results to be able to turn it into decisions and at the end of the day acting. That middle layer is missing.
Yes.
How do you see organizations tackling that problem?
Oh, they're struggling hugely with this issue. Sensor data is one aspect of it. And one of the reasons big organizations struggling hugely with it is that they, past 10, 20 years, they basically sourced out their IT expertise outside the company. And they have a central, maybe a small team of a central IT department that take care of all the IT topics. Within the organization of corporate real estate, there is no IT expertise, or I see little or few organizations that they try to build that. And that goes back to the topic that we don't have enough technical resources in corporate real estate. And I try, over the past couple of years, I try to be able to translate data in their language, but that's not enough, because occupancy data is one part of the whole jigsaw piece that they need to make decisions. Other part is, let's say, what type of portfolio of assets do I have when they are leasing, the rent contract goes out, and when do we need to start or move to a new or buildings. They need to collect the data around if they are building people in the organization, or they are reducing the number of employees in the organization. And most of the time, I try to help them, organizations, around, they get ad hoc requests from the board. So tell me, how much space do we need where we are if we ask the people to come back to office 3 days in a week? And that's the moment they start really going into panic mode, because probably they have the data in around to make that decision somewhere in the organization, but they are mostly distributed in so many different Excel files. And sensor data is only one piece of that. So they need to collect that, bring it all in a huge, I have seen those Excel files, in a huge Excel files that probably only one person understand where the data come from. But still they are not able to make that ad hoc decision making, because they require at least a couple of months to collect those data. So each inquiry for those scenario planning is a huge task. That's one aspect. The other aspect, to translate the sensor data into a concrete actions related to the building, again, takes them months, because it's not a straightforward process. They need to understand the data over a couple of months, even years, and develop together with the supplier the expertise to understand what to do with the data, how to look at the data, because the data is there, but if you want to make changes, you need to consider the cultural background of the organization itself. So that translation layer, again, is a key, and you need someone with architectural understanding and technical background to play that translation layer. I don't see that majority of the sensor providers have that capability to do that, because they don't look at the building as the workplace manager look at it. And this is a very key challenge, and we're still in the process of developing those translation layers within the industry to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so interesting. So it's two aspects. It's one, the interpretation of the data itself as a sort of foundation work, and that, I guess, is also a big challenge, that of course sensor data and most data sources within real estate, of course, refer primarily to historic data, showing you trends and patterns and so on. But real estate decisions always are for the future, meaning that you then have to go into that sort of scenario simulation mode, which is super complex. I often see it being done very much oversimplified, just for the sake of being able to handle it, and sort of going at it with very, very simplified models, and very in some cases then even just gut feeling and instinct, which kind of defeats the purpose of having had all that context of data collection in the first place. But it's as you say, it's then ad hoc requirements and having to deliver answers in that moment, and how can you do that? And bridging that gap is very challenging. Do you have maybe to sort of turn it around from the what's all not working so well to the what's maybe working well? Do you have some concrete examples of where that's been done well?
I see organization that started with booking tools, but that was the first move. Most of the organization start adopting to understand how the people use the building is based on the booking tools. Then they really very fast understood that booking apps shows you who booked and which desks are free, basically based on the data in the booking tool, but doesn't provide you the necessary data how is really occupied.
Mm.
People sit or occupy spaces without booking, or people book but never show up. So that gap led to usage of sensors, and then the organization started implementing sensors. They get really good data out of that, but it makes it very fast prohibitive if you want to adopt sensors to all your locations. With different regulations in different countries, which most of the big organizations encounter. What I see more and more is you need kind of an overview of your requirements from the space that you need. What type of spaces do I need? And then understand or measure those critical areas in the building with sensors, not bringing in sensors for everywhere, rather than identify through that process of looking at your building from the way that you look at the building, in the way that the space you look at the building. That's just to give an overview. Where is the optimal area of how should we occupy the building from the optimal perspective? And then usually you see there are critical areas where we need to look into that more closely. And those critical areas, I believe, are the best candidates for sensors to, over a couple of months, look at the data, discuss with the people, and understand how they usually use those areas. And then for that scarce resources, use bookings. So my ideal approach would be as a kind of a pyramid, not starting with sensors, implement everywhere, and then try to figure out what should I do with all this data, rather than understand your building, how your people, your organization, based on the design modules that you have in place, what would be the ideal space, and then look into the critical area with sensors and introduce booking for the scarce resources. And that makes it very also cost sensitive for the organization to approach it. And by doing so, I've learned that the organization have a better position to get the approval for the budget from the board, because it's, look at it very plastically, in a very real way. If you install sensors, after a while, you're sitting a lot of hardware installed in your environment. And if you don't need them because you have already figured out how the people work, you're sitting a lot of cost that you basically, to use it, you need to monthly pay for it. Mm-hmm. It's better to have a fixed budget or fixed inventory of sensors where you install in critical spaces. Once you understood that, move those sensors to the next critical area or to the other location. And by doing so, you have a much effective or efficient way of using your resources and your budget to make decisions.
So a very smart deployment of technologies.
Exactly.
To get insights where they matter most and where they can actually deliver value, and using sort of more low tech, more other approaches for the initial high tech, let's say high level quick check overview monitoring style, mm-hmm. And then these deep dives with the appropriate solutions. So even there, within the sort of work tech stack, not one size fits all for the entire portfolio, but very differentiated, very goal oriented deployment of the available solutions to deliver maximum value. That's very smart. Yeah, very cost efficient, as you say, and yeah, very smart. Interesting. Um, uh, Assuming more organizations will adopt this approach, that of course would be great. But where will it lead in I don't know, 3 to 5 years? What's the future of this whole space optimization, data sensor, smart decision making? What do you imagine coming, or what do you see coming?
Wow. I need to bring up my glass, future looking into my glass bulb. No, I don't know. It's, we're still in a phase of, um, in a way that we are working that we expect people to come to office. There's still a hierarchical way of working based on departments, task, focus areas. And my personal favorite is we need to come to a level that each product or each solution or each services that the organization deliver are work in a kind of in a startup environment of maximum, let's say, 100 to 150 people, where they are capable to know each other, interact with each other, and this is the most effective way to do that. And even if you go to that type of task divisioning and the way that Henry Ford started doing that, it's you look at the people that at the end of the day, when they're back home, they don't know what they have done because they have doing everything every day the same way. They don't have an overview from the beginning to the end. They don't know what happens with their work. They don't have an overview of outcome going to the market. They have only very small area of working on. And it had led in the past years to a lot of depressions, a lot of issues. You see that David Graeber wrote the book around bullshit jobs. People believe they don't contribute enough. So the people start adopting very complex hobbies just to bring back the sense of purpose in what they're doing every day. So if we don't address the topic of where we are leading to, where we are heading, what is the purpose of what I'm doing, and do the job differently, I believe we will have enough discussions around the politics. We are not efficient enough. You're not effective enough. You're not working hard enough. But I don't think you can perform those discussions without having objective. What are our targets? Where we are heading as a society, as a civilization, as what we want to achieve together.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a very big goal setting almost that you're doing there. But maybe to sort of try and reflect in my own words, you're saying, well, first of all, the future, we need to define what is the purpose of work, what is the purpose of the workplace, of the office, of the space. How do these two sort of, or how does the space actually support the overarching purpose of our society, to make it really big. And then once that's done, or once that's there, to have a much more integrated network of people to understand what each individual contributes to that overarching objective. And then maybe to take it another step down, that if we then, by understanding why we're doing certain things, so again, coming back to what's the objective of space optimization, if we know what we're trying to actually achieve with that and how that plays into the bigger picture, then being able to also much more precisely, much more smartly, and much more intelligently selecting solutions based on the specific requirements similar to what you said previously. Yeah, in some areas it might be sensors, here it might be that, and then they are presumably also having highly integrated systems to then also give that holistic data context for making those decisions, which I think is a very nice vision for the future, because it elevates the human into that role of striving towards a certain purpose or towards a certain vision with a purpose in mind, using data in a very smart way, not just more, but using data in a way to inspire and then make the right decision, which I think is a very beautiful, very beautiful counter vision to many that are communicated at the moment. AI will take over everything, and humans need to find their own new hobbies to keep busy. No, that's interesting. Yeah. Really interesting. Maybe to finish off, or to sort of come to a close. If there was one piece of advice that you would give a sort of real estate team within an organization, what would it be? What's your sort of top piece of advice to anyone in this field? Maybe someone that's currently trying to progress in terms of maturity, already has collected some data, got sensors here and there, but hasn't done everything. What would you recommend?
Strategically, I always recommend all the CREM and facility workplace divisions develop data and IT expertise within your organization. You need people that are capable of translating the role of translating technology into the viewpoint of the corporate real estate. And if you don't develop that in-house within your teams, you're always subject to developing technologies that you are not able to judge or effectively use. So, and I see that it's not happening very fast, because traditionally corporate real estate and FM has a very limited budget, and the perspective of organization on those departments is we don't need it. Actually, they have lowest budget for hiring people, and with those budgets, most of the CREM heads are not capable of getting the right people with who are IT savvy, data savvy within their organization, and that's the struggle. And if the organization are not capable of address these issues, they will run to huge topics. And may I add one other aspect? If we consider the topic of ESG, carbon footprint, and the way that we need to report CSRD, the way that we need to report our financial, the huge organization need to report their financial results into that carbon footprint aspects, and all come back to corporate real estate and facility management. The role of these departments becoming more and more strategically heavy, and they need to play their role differently within the organization to get the resources they need to be able to digitalize in a right way and use the suppliers in the market, the technology available in the market, translate for themselves the right solution to be able to be effective within the organization.
Sounds like a great piece of advice. Yeah. Peyman, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
But I think that was a very interesting conversation.